begin. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulihil kareem, wa ala alihi wa ashabihi, wa man istanna bi sunnatihi ila yawmiddin. All praise is due to Allah, and may Allah's peace and blessings be on the last Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and on all those who follow the path of righteousness until the last day. This is the 23rd session of our series in the names of Allah. And in this session, we'll be looking at the 32nd name, which is Al-Basir, the all-seeing, the all-perceiving. In terms of its Quranic location, as we said, we always look to see where is it in the Quran, or if it's not in the Quran, where is it in the Sunnah? Because we don't accept names, or we don't give Allah names from our own selves, that just opens the door to chaos in our theology, in our understanding of who Allah really is. So the divine name Al-Basir is mentioned 42 times in the Quran. Among them, in Surah Al-Isra, verse 1, Allah says there, "Innahu huwa as-sami'ul basir." Indeed, He is the all-hearing, the all-seeing. Now, the meaning of Al-Basir, linguistically, comes from the triliteral root Ba, Sad, Ra, Basar, Basarun, which is said to have 4 possible meanings. The first of the 4 is to see or notice, and the second, to understand. The third meaning is to have insight or to perceive, and the fourth is to be precisely aware. Now, to see is the original, most basic meaning from basar. But as in English, when we say, "I see what you mean," does that mean literally, "I see what you mean"? No. It has allegorical, metaphorical meanings, and from those metaphorical meanings, it brings out other meanings. So this metaphorical use, "I see what you mean," really means I understand or I perceive what you mean. And similarly in Arabic, it's the same. The root basar appears 148 times in the Quran in 10 derived forms from other aspects of the root once it turns into verbs and nouns and participles and adjectives and adverbs, etc., etc. Now, linguistically, Basir is the intensive form of the fa'il word pattern of the participle basir, one who sees or is seeing. From basir, we go to basir, being a more intensive form than basir. And we have seen this pattern, I'm sure you are recognizing it as it's repeated time and time again for many of Allah's names. Relative to Allah, this divine name, Al-Basir, means or refers to the perfection and the totality of Allah's seeing, which cannot be compared with the seeing of other created beings. Can't be compared. Ibn al-Qayyim, in a we could say a more picturesque explaining of the meaning, said, Al-Basir is the one who, due to the perfection of his sight, sees the details of the creation of a small ant's limbs and body parts, its flesh, its blood, its brain, and its capillaries. He sees its footprints on a smooth black rock in the middle of a moonless night. This is sort of a picturesque way of expressing what we said before. It is the totality. Nothing escapes his sight. That's the bottom line. Nothing. Whether in the heavens or in the earth or hidden under a rock or whatever, nothing escapes his sight. Now, the point to note here, before we go on, is that we have the same situation as we had when we looked at the name As-Samir. We said there, when we looked at it in our previous session, that some Muslim philosophers and theologians, influenced by Greek philosophy, in the past denied the name all-seeing, Al-Basir. They denied it. Some of them denied it as an attribute. Some of them denied both the name and the attribute, one more extreme than the other. And all of it was based on what? On the fact that with regards to Allah's creatures, the creatures see by means of some apparatus. They see by means of some apparatus. Either it's actual eyes as we know it, or it's in a different kind of way, like a snail has a stalks with things at the end. It doesn't look like an eye that we have. Some animals have eyes that are like in their heads, like the way we do. Others, they have it all over the place. Okay, so but still they have some apparatus which allows them to see, a seeing apparatus, right? So, and those seeing apparati, we call them eyes, whatever. Whether it's a compound eye like the fly and others, they're still called eyes. So, according to them, if we attribute seeing to Allah, it implies that He also has eyes or seeing apparatuses of some sort, like His creatures. Consequently, they claim that this divine name was purely a metaphorical usage of the meaning all-seeing, not to be taken literally, and that its actual meaning is all-knowing. All-seeing really meant all-knowing. However, as was previously stated, we already have a clear statement of Allah regarding this matter. Allah didn't leave this untouched. He did not leave this tendency for people to go down these roads, taking you off that straight and clear path or going divergent roads. So He made a clear statement regarding this, which should be the be-all and the end-all of the discussion, end of discussion. And it's applicable here as it was applicable in the case of the name As-Samir, the all-hearing. And that is from Surah Ash-Shura, that's the 42nd chapter in the Quran, verse 11. Allah says there, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. There is nothing similar to Him, but He is the all-hearing and the all-seeing. In this verse, on one hand, Allah denies that any part of His creation resembles Him, and that's basic. Regardless of what we have attributed to Allah based on His own statements, all of it has to be taken in the context that it doesn't resemble Him. if there is a shared aspect between human beings and Allah, Allah spoke to his prophets. We speak. Does that mean that he has to have vocal cords and everything else? No, it doesn't. You know, a speaking apparatus. No, that in our case is what it requires. But in Allah's case, he is not like his creatures. What we need, he doesn't need. He has no needs. He is as-samad. That's what as-samad means. He has no needs. Everything needs him, and he doesn't need anything. So, the bottom line, as we said, is that Allah, after confirming that there is nothing similar to him, as he said, وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ, and no one is similar to him, he goes on to say that he hears all and he sees all. So what do we do here? We say, no, he doesn't really hear all and see all, he knows all. No, this is not our right. We don't have the authority to go and change Allah's words. He said he hears all and he sees all. So we just say, we hear and we accept. Now, how he hears and sees is not for us to contemplate, debate, or investigate, as we can never find out. The bottom line, we can never find out. In reality, knowing the hows about Allah would make us equal to or greater than Allah. When we know the hows about the creatures, what does that give us? It gives us an edge over them. They know us too, but their knowledge is limited. You know, we have, once we find out about them, you know, the elephant that normally in the wild, you know, we have to get out of his way. But once we understood him and all of his ways of moving and conceiving things, etc., then we got on his back and we rode him. We used them to pick up logs. Till today, people in some parts of the world, the third world, they use elephants to, you know, to pick up logs, pick up things. They're trained. Then we took him into the circus. We had him dancing. We had him standing on one stool with all his feet up. You know, of course, that was even unthinkable of, you know, first human beings who were coming in contact with the elephants, that this huge thing, we would have him doing all of this, you know, running around, tying it, you know, holding with his trunk the tail of another elephant, and another elephant behind him holding onto his tail, and they're walking around or running around in a circle. That's what happens when we understand the hows. We gain control over it. And that's not happening with Allah. That's why there are no hows to figure out. None. Allah is Allah. What he has told us about himself is what we know, and that's it. Furthermore, when we look at the whole issue, you know, of Allah having eyes or not seeing, we have in the statement of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ with regard to Dajjal, he said, he's describing him for us to know who he is. And keep this in mind, people. Actually, some people have already, but let's see. He said, Innahu a'warun. Indeed, he is blind in one eye. Wa inna rabbakum laysa bi'a'war. And your Lord is not blind in one eye. So, he clarified for us about Dajjal. Of course, some people say, oh, well, you know, he only has one eye, you know, They perceive him as a cyclops, from Greek mythology. He has one big eye in the middle of his head. Or they say he's the television. That television is like one big eye looking at you all the time. You think you're watching it, but it's watching you.